So this Spider-Man fan film came out the other day called Spider-Man Lotus, which does have a lot of controversial opinions against it, usually against the actor who is playing Spider-Man, called Warden Wayne. He was recently caught out a couple months ago for saying some racist stuff when he was younger. But honestly, before all that controversy and drama started, I was still wanting to watch the film. And then when I first heard about it, obviously it did affect the way I was thinking about the film, because now I just couldn't really see it the same way. But I didn't want to let that stop me from watching the film, because Spider-Man is a very delicate character for me. So after the film finally came out and finally watching it, I can give my honest thoughts about it. I also just want to say I have a new setup now. I have an actual bed. Like, I've spent the past couple of weeks sleeping on the floor because I was like moving stuff around, and I was finally managed to buy myself a bed, build it, and now I have like a brand new setup, and now I have my phone against my TV, which is a pretty nice way to do it. Because what I was doing before in my last setup is that I would just balance my phone on top of a bunch of books and then get a bottle to like support the back of it so I could set it up. It was a nightmare. But now it's a little bit more easier, and now I can, just showcase my Spider-Man Build-A-Bear. Hell yeah, he's got his little red boots. Oh, that's so cool. We also got the Spider-Man bed cover, which you can't really see properly, but yeah, got fully decked out Spider-Man set. Got some posters as well, and Spider-Man mug with some tea in. And it's got my face on it. My girlfriend got me it, that's why it's got my face on it. Damn, that's good tea. So yeah, I do apologize for taking a couple weeks off. I just really had to move stuff around in my room, and now I can finally focus back on YouTube videos. And I am hoping to make another video on Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which, by the way, I have finally pre-ordered my copy of the game. I pre-ordered myself the Digital Deluxe Edition a couple weeks ago, and my god, I am counting down the days. So from right now, as I'm recording this, it is 62 days left, and I'm so hyped. I'm going to be streaming it first thing, and I think I'm going to be streaming it on YouTube, because streaming it on Twitch, I don't really go on Twitch that much anymore, so I think I'm going to be streaming on YouTube on my channel. So on October 20th, if you can't afford the game, then you are more than welcome to come to my stream, and yeah, just so excited. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, let's talk about Spider-Man Lotus. So the film opens up with this fantastic view of the New York City skyline, and then instantly transitions into this car chase, which also leads up to this fight scene between Spider-Man and the Shocker, which I think is a great way to start the film. And before I get too ahead in, I just want to say, if you haven't seen the film or you don't know what it's about, this basically takes place after the events of Gwen Stacy's death, and most of the story does have a lot of parts that are very much inspired by other comics, such as Harry Osborn's drug addiction, and there's this comic that the director said was inspired by this comic book called Spider-Man Blue, which I know nothing about. So this movie does take a lot of inspiration from comics. So during the boss fight between Spider-Man and the Shocker, I was taking a really good look at the costumes. They are pretty good, especially for a fan film. They look high quality. I think what I like about the Shocker's design is that it doesn't feel like it's too cartoony, and it doesn't feel like it's just a cushion, because I've never really been a fan of the Shocker's actual comic book design. I mean, it has looked cool, but I mean, it never looked like it would fit well in live action. And in this fan film alone, they made the Shocker, I keep wanting to say the Prowler instead of the Shocker, I don't know why that keeps coming to my mind, but they managed to make the Shocker's design look really cool and sleek, and I don't know if you've seen the Kick-Ass movies, but it kind of gives off a vibe to that, the way it's made. But like, honestly, it's a really cool suit, and especially the Spider-Man suit. The only thing I don't like about the Spider-Man suit is it feels a little bit too desaturated. I wish it was like more in color, because it feels a little bit muddy, it feels dirty. The rest of it, I really love. They really managed to make the comic book accurate suit into like its modern take of it, and it's just really well done. And I really like how they added the ant-like symbol, because it shares a really great place in my heart, which actually, hold on. I used to watch this all the time when I was younger, which was the 1970s series, where he had that similar symbol. It always felt more like an actual spider. Like, it wasn't too oversimplified, and it wasn't too basic. It was just a regular symbol. I feel like I'm talking too much about the symbol alone. There's not really much to talk about, but I like how they they stuck with like a classic one, the Steve Ditko one. And not only that, there's also the homemade Spider-Man suit that they included in the film, which is essentially Peter Parker's first suit, which I love, but I think it's a bit too perfect. Because I'm pretty sure Peter Parker doesn't really have sewing experience. Peter Parker, who just got his powers at like 15 and has no sewing experience, can make a perfect, just absolutely gorgeous Spider-Man suit without any mistakes. I just think like that's the only thing I think feels weird with it, because it looks amazing, but it just feels too perfect. It looks too perfect to be made by a teenager. That kind of sounds like I'm just trying to nitpick at every single thing possible. No, it's just these thoughts that came to my head when I first saw it.
Now, I don't really have much to say about the Green Goblin design because most of it is just covered up and the mask does not look threatening at all. I like to imagine the Green Goblin looking scary and this just looks goofy. And plus, I don't want to give the actor who played the Green Goblin any recognition because he did act kind of racist after the controversy apparently, and I just want to skip that.
I've seen people actually complain about the film having bad CGI when you should be aware it is a fan-made film. It's not going to have $20 million MCU style Endgame style CGI. For a fan-made film, the acting and the CGI is surprisingly well done. So I don't know what there is to complain about with that. Like, the CGI is really good. Acting is decent, but like it's not going to be perfect, you know what I mean? Because it's not, they're not hiring Christian Bale or some shit, not some top tier Leonardo DiCaprio actors. Like, I'm not kidding, people are actually complaining because of that. It's a fan film, you dumbass. But yeah, moving on. So after the fight scene with the Shocker and Spider-Man, there is this scene with Peter running down the street to meet up with Gwen, MJ, Harry. Already, I don't really feel the connection yet between Peter and Gwen. And the reason why I say that is because later in the movie there is a scene when Peter wakes up from this nightmare, which, by the way, is a great, well put together scene, but a bit slow paced. In that nightmare when Gwen opens up his shirt and the only thing in color, like the whole thing was in black and white except for his suit. That was cool. But when Peter wakes up from that nightmare, he pulls up this USB and there's a bunch of videos of him and Gwen. I feel like if that was played before, like earlier in the movie, that would have made me grow more of a connection between Peter and Gwen. Because in the first scene introducing us all to Peter and Gwen and Harry and MJ, I did not feel any connection between Peter and Gwen. They just felt like two random strangers who just met. Oh, and by the way, when Peter pulled out the ring, they did not seem like the right age for that. I don't even know how old they're meant to be in this movie. I can't really remember if anyone said so, like, but yeah, I wasn't expecting him to pull out a ring like that. I thought they were gonna be like college students or something. But obviously he never got to propose because, you know, she died. So that led Peter to this sad depression state, which I kind of like how the movie plays on that, because it's more of like a perspective on Peter's grief and loss, knowing he couldn't save her. Being a superhero is cool. Being Spider-Man would be awesome, but there is always consequences. There is always someone that you cannot save. And I just love that idea of the story where it's just more focused on Peter's perspective. It's more of like a Peter Parker movie than a Spider-Man movie, because it focuses more on Peter Parker than Spider-Man. Which, I don't know if this is intentional, because having more scenes with Peter than Spider-Man, it makes it feel like that they are two separate people instead of the same person. It is implied that in the movie, he states that he was close to giving up as Spider-Man. Him wanting to give up as Spider-Man, maybe he sees Spider-Man as a completely different person. That's the kind of feeling I get from that. So reverting back to Gwen's death, there is a scene that starts off with Peter at the graveyard overlooking at Gwen's grave, and along comes MJ, Mary Jane. And I thought that this was going to be a sweet and tender moment with them comforting each other because they are friends, they are close friends. You'd think, well, at least I thought that Peter would understand the pain that MJ has also going through, because her and Gwen were friends as well. It's not just affecting him, surely Peter would know that, but no. He just starts being a dickhead for some reason to MJ. And to Harry for some reason. Oh my god, don't even get me started on Harry. Peter was such a shit friend to not only MJ but Harry. He did not apologize for his dad's passing until like close to the end of the movie. I just do not like that. Like, they just made Peter's character trait in the movie just selfish and annoying. And MJ, like, she came over to comfort him, but he just spat right in her face. That's just one of the things I didn't like the most about this film. It's just that Peter is being brought out to be more of an asshole, when that just doesn't feel right for the character. It doesn't. It just feels like a complete unnecessary change to his character trait. And I know that people grieve in different ways, but that doesn't necessarily mean he should start berating his friends who are trying to comfort him. It's just so unnecessary. I think what would have been better if each character, Peter, MJ, Harry, if they had their own scene by themselves to show what they're going through, how they're dealing with it. Which actually reminds me, one of the scenes that I really enjoyed in this film was when MJ and Flash Thompson were talking. Yeah, that's right, Flash Thompson's in this film. And to show how much Flash has grown as a person, to being like a bully to Peter, to even admitting, saying that he had respect for Peter after stepping up to Flash, shows how much a person can grow, and it doesn't really show that much for Peter. I just feel like there's just so many things in this movie which feel kind of messy and confusing, unnecessary, or slow-paced, and it's just a bit of a letdown. But also there are some bits which I'd like to rewatch again, honestly. And another scene when this kid called Tim Harrison, who is a terminally ill child and essentially Spider-Man's biggest fan, which is also another reason why MJ came up to Peter in the graveyard to give him the letter, which I'm pretty sure at that point I think MJ knows that Peter's Spider-Man. It's just never really said. But when Spider-Man does go out to see Tim, there's this really wholesome scene with Tim just showing him all of this stuff, all of the newspapers that he kept, and how Peter's showing him his web shoe and how it works. It reminds me of this other Spider-Man show I used to watch called Spider-Man the Animated Series with Christopher Daniel Barnes as Spider-Man. Who wouldn't not know that legend? And there was this specific episode in that show where Spider-Man visits this terminally ill child, and I think her name was Taliana, and he made her this like swing out of his own web fluid, and it was so wholesome. It was just like stuff like that in the film that really showed how loving it can be and how moving it could be if there was just more of that. The idea of it being about grief is fantastic, but the execution was kind of really just lackluster. Like, I would have preferred it if it was more of like Spider-Man, you know, questioning himself, more of like an identity crisis kind of story at the same time. Because obviously after losing Gwen, you might be feeling like, do I even deserve to have these powers? I couldn't do the one job and save the love of my life. I do not deserve this. Having that type of stuff happening in this movie instead of being like, no MJ, fuck you, Harry, your dad dead? Fuck you! So like, it just kind of bleeds into like this horrible mess sometimes, but there's like other certain parts in the film where I really do adore. And I just love the references in it as well. I love the inspirations that it took from it. But again, the execution, so much slow pacing. For example, when at the start of the movie, when Peter meets up with Gwen, MJ, Harry, and then there's just this really long suspenseful bit of Peter just looking at Gwen. Gwen's just like... Gwen doesn't like eye contact in this movie. And then obviously there was the final swing, which honestly, all of the CGI in this film was amazing, especially the bit when he was sitting on top of that bridge in the rain. That felt like it was straight out of a comic, and I'm pretty sure it was straight out of a comic. But it was amazing, it was perfect. So that's pretty much all I have left to say about this movie. I know I probably sounded harsh for some of it, but it's the honest truth. I didn't really like most of it. Now, I do understand if you just don't want to watch the movie or don't like the movie because of the controversy, but at least try to respect people's opinions when they do say that they enjoyed the movie, because I came across this YouTube video by this guy called News to Astonish. He on Twitter said that he gave it like a 7 out of 10 for Spider-Man Lotus, and people were saying, oh, you liked Spider-Man Lotus? Does that mean you like racism? Just because you don't like something doesn't mean everyone else is going to think the same way. People are going to have different thoughts. I didn't really enjoy it. That doesn't mean I hated it. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't enjoy it that much. Some of it was enjoyable. The rest just kind of felt boring. It's not perfect. It's nowhere near perfect. I was a bit skeptical to make this video though because of the controversy, because people can change. there is always the ability to change. There's always the ability to get a second chance. It's a real shame that all that happened around the movie, because before all the controversy, there was nothing but hype around it, and then after it just changed the entire fandom, and everyone just started hating on it immediately. The actor did some really awful shit. I'm trying to be honest in the most respectful way possible. I think it's just better and more healthy to just move forward and just focus on trying to make it better. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my review, and soon I will make another video soon. I don't know on what yet, and yeah, I will see you all later.